October 12, 1928, 7:43 a.m., Dearborn, Michigan. Henry Ford walked into his private office overlooking the Rouge River plant and made a decision that would perplex historians for the next century. He picked up the telephone and spoke 4 words to his production manager. Stop the Fordson line. 3,000 tractors sat half-assembled on the factory floor. Orders for 47,000 more filled the company books. The Fordson controlled 75% of America's tractor market. Profit margins exceeded 15% on each unit. Every metric screamed success. Ford shut it down anyway. No explanation to his engineers, no announcement to dealers, no transition plan for the 40,000 farmers waiting for deliveries. Just silence from the man who had promised to mechanize every acre in America. This is the story of the most baffling business decision in agricultural history. How Henry Ford conquered American farming, then walked away at the moment of absolute triumph, and why nobody has ever figured out why. The obsession began on a September morning in 1907. Ford stood in a Michigan wheat field watching 4 draft horses struggle against a 2-bottom plow. The mathematics infuriated him. 8 hours. 22 acres. 4 animals consuming the equivalent of 24 acres of feed annually just to work those 22 acres. The inefficiency violated everything Ford believed about mechanical power. The horse is finished, he told his chief engineer, Eugene Farkas. We're going to build a machine that replaces 4 horses, costs less than 4 horses, and works harder than 4 horses. The first experimental tractor emerged in his Highland Park shop in 1915. Ford called it Automobile Plow. Workers nicknamed it Fordson, Ford and Son, after Edsel Ford. The name stuck through 9 years of development. Ford approached tractor design the same way he'd revolutionized automobile manufacturing. Eliminate complexity. Where competitors assembled tractors from dozens of separate components, Ford created a stressed member design. The transmission case, differential housing, and final drive formed the structural frame. Weight, 2,700 pounds. Competitors averaged 4,200 pounds. Power, 20 horsepower from a 251 cubic inch L-head 4-cylinder engine. Price, $750 when International Harvester charged $1,100. But specifications told only half the story. Ford understood farmers weren't buying horsepower, they were buying liberation from biological limitations. Horses required rest, feed, veterinary care, and breeding management. The Fordson demanded only gasoline and periodic maintenance. Production began February 1918 at the Rouge River complex. Ford applied assembly line techniques to agricultural machinery for the first time in history. Where traditional tractor manufacturers built perhaps 50 units weekly, Ford's line produced 147 Fordsons daily by December 1918. The timing was perfect. World War I had created desperate demand for increased agricultural output. Labor shortages plagued every farming region. The government needed grain for Allied forces. The Fordson offered mechanical multiplication of human effort at precisely the moment America needed it most. Ford's promotional campaigns resembled evangelical crusades. Company literature proclaimed, "The Fordson will lift primitive drudgery from agriculture's shoulders forever." Demonstrations drew crowds like revival meetings. Farmers watched in stunned silence as a single Fordson outworked 8 horses, operating 16 hours without rest, turning soil that horse teams couldn't penetrate. The sales figures documented agricultural revolution. 1919, 57,000 units. 1920, 101,000 units despite economic recession. 1921, 36,000 units during the worst farm depression in decades. By 1922, Ford controlled 55% of America's tractor market. International Harvester, the established agricultural giant, scrambled to respond. Ford's vertical integration devastated competitors. While other manufacturers purchased engines, transmissions, and castings from suppliers. Ford produced everything in-house. Steel came from Ford's own mines, rubber from Ford plantations. Even spark plugs rolled off Ford assembly lines. Cost advantages compounded at every production level. The breakthrough came in 1925. Ford reduced Fordson pricing to $390. Adjusted for agricultural commodity prices, that represented less than half the cost of International Harvester's comparable machine. Farmers formed waiting lists extending 8 months. Dealers reported customers offering cash premiums for immediate delivery. Market dominance became near monopoly control. 1926. Ford captured 71% of American tractor sales. 1927, 74%. 1928, 75%. Over 750,000 Fordsons worked American farms. No agricultural product in history had achieved such rapid, complete market penetration. Ford himself seemed amazed by the success. "We intended to mechanize agriculture," he told reporters in early 1928. "We accomplished more than we imagined possible. American farming will never return to horsepower." Then came October 12th. The shutdown directive reached division managers through internal telephone calls. Effective immediately, discontinue Fordson production, shut down tooling, transfer workers to automotive operations. No explanation. No timeline for resumption, just termination of America's most successful agricultural product. Speculation began immediately. Financial difficulties? Impossible. Ford Motor Company reported record quarterly profits. Technical problems? Absurd. Fordson reliability had improved consistently since 1918. Labor disputes? None existed. Material shortages? Ford controlled raw material sources from iron ore to rubber latex. The mystery deepened when additional details emerged. Ford hadn't suspended production temporarily. He'd ordered complete destruction of Fordson tooling, dies, patterns, assembly fixtures, jigs, everything, as if he intended to ensure no future Fordson could ever be manufactured. Engineers who worked the project offered contradictory theories. Some claimed Ford had grown obsessed with aviation technology, viewing tractors as obsolete mechanical concepts. Others suggested frustration with agricultural sales cycles that couldn't match automotive volume turnover. The most credible explanation centered on emerging international competition. Harry Ferguson's hydraulic three-point hitch system, demonstrated in England during 1927, represented revolutionary technology that made conventional tractors seem primitive. Perhaps Ford recognized that maintaining market leadership would require massive research investment at a moment when General Motors Chevrolet threatened Model T dominance. But Henry Ford never explained his reasoning publicly. When pressed by reporters, he deflected. "The Fordson accomplished our objectives. American farms are mechanized. That chapter is finished." The agricultural community reacted with bewilderment and fury. Implement dealers who'd invested fortunes in Fordson-specific equipment found themselves stranded with obsolete inventory. Farmers who'd planned multi-year equipment purchases around Fordson availability scrambled to find alternatives that didn't exist in sufficient quantities. International Harvester moved aggressively to capture Ford's abandoned territory. The Farmall Regular, introduced in 1924 as a specialized row crop machine, suddenly became America's dominant general-purpose tractor. Case: Oliver and John Deere expanded production frantically to meet demand Ford had created but refused to supply. The irony was staggering. Ford's mechanization campaign had succeeded beyond his boldest projections. Tractor sales industry-wide continued growing after Ford's departure. American farmers purchased 218,000 tractors in 1929, proving the demand Ford walked away from remained enormous and profitable. Ford continued manufacturing Fordsons at facilities in Ireland and England for international markets until 1945. American farmers could purchase imported Fordsons through specialty dealers, but shipping delays and service complications made domestic alternatives more practical. Some historians argue Ford's withdrawal reflected deeper personality changes. By 1928, Ford had become increasingly isolated, suspicious of advisors, obsessed with controlling every aspect of his industrial empire. Perhaps he viewed the agricultural division's success as a distraction from his automotive legacy. Or maybe the man who'd built the Rouge River complex simply grew bored with tractors. Others point to Ford's emerging fascination with industrial chemistry. Having mechanized farming through tractors, Ford pursued chemical solutions: synthetic fuels, soybean plastics, industrial food processing. Perhaps tractors represented the past while biochemistry represented the future. The timing suggests external pressures influenced Ford's decision. During 1928, General Motors introduced the Chevrolet 6, seriously challenging Model T supremacy for the first time since 1908. Ford needed every engineering resource concentrated on automotive competition. Agricultural profits, however substantial, couldn't justify divided attention when his core business faced existential threats. What remains undisputed is the transformation Ford accomplished. Before 1918, American agriculture operated essentially as it had for millennia: human and animal muscle supplemented by simple implements. After 1928, farming had become mechanized industry. Tractors pulled equipment horses couldn't move. Farmers cultivated acreage previously impossible to work. Productivity per acre increased 43% during the Fordson decade. The psychological impact exceeded the practical revolution. Ford proved agricultural technology could advance as rapidly as any other industry. Farmers who'd accepted traditional limitations suddenly demanded innovation in every aspect of farm operation: planting equipment, harvesting machinery, crop processing systems, even financial services tailored to mechanized agriculture. International Harvester's hydraulic systems, John Deere's power takeoff innovations, Case's comfort features, all emerged from competitive pressure Ford created. By abandoning the market, Ford forced competitors to innovate beyond anything they'd previously attempted. His departure accelerated agricultural advancement rather than slowing it. Modern agricultural historians view Ford's 1928 withdrawal as the moment American farming truly became agribusiness. Without Ford's aggressive pricing constraining profit margins, manufacturers could invest in advanced features and premium positioning strategies. Tractors evolved from simple power units to sophisticated agricultural platforms incorporating hydraulics, electronics, and operator comfort systems. Ford never returned to large-scale agricultural equipment manufacturing. Brief experiments with specialty machinery during the Depression produced nothing commercially significant. The man who'd mechanized American agriculture seemed content to let others build upon the mechanical foundation he'd established. Today, Ford's agricultural legacy endures in ways he never anticipated. Modern precision agriculture relies on concepts Ford pioneered: systematic efficiency, data-driven optimization, mechanical reliability measured in decades rather than seasons. GPS-guided tractors trace their intellectual lineage directly to Fordson innovations. Perhaps Henry Ford understood something his critics couldn't see. Revolutions require revolutionaries, but sustaining progress demands different skills. Ford had shattered agricultural tradition, proved mechanical farming economically viable, and created an industry where none existed. Others could refine, improve, and perfect what he'd begun. The mystery of October 12, 1928 remains unsolved. No private correspondence, corporate memoranda, or family recollections have ever explained Ford's reasoning. The man who mechanized America's farms carried his secret to the grave, leaving only the machines that changed agriculture forever. If this story reminded you why industrial mysteries fascinate us, please hit that like button. It helps us share more forgotten chapters of American innovation that shaped our world. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're documenting the decisions and the visionaries who transformed how we live. Drop a comment right now and tell us where you're watching from. Are you on land that once supported Ford tractors? Maybe you've encountered vintage Fordson equipment in barns or museums? Or perhaps you know other business mysteries that deserve investigation? Just let us know you're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for helping preserve Henry Ford's agricultural legacy. The farmers who trusted his revolutionary vision deserve to be remembered, and you're making that remembrance possible.